Well, my name is Vyacheslav Shvaidak, but the whole ecosystem here knows me as Slava. I'm a Ukrainian myself. I'm an ex-lieutenant in the Ukrainian Armed Forces and PhD in economics, and it's not quite right that I was a foreign company that came to Odense. It's just was me who came to Odense and founded the company. So it was it's a long story, but 5 days before the war started, I left Ukraine because my friend asked me to go out and help him in negotiations in Sweden, because I'm fluent in English and can do some negotiations. And he asked to parley on his behalf. So when I had so that's why I left Ukraine 5 days before the war started, and I had a ticket back on 24th of February. It was that day the war started.
Wow.
Like, so like I woke up and the war started, and basically I had this soul split moment, like, because I really love Ukraine and Ukrainian people and Ukrainian culture, and I really wanted to go back, jump into the tank and kill some Russians. But I thought that I'm gonna die like in 3 months, taking 10 Russians with me. So it's not a contribution that I think I can do in order to defend my country. So I decided to stay out, but I made a vow with myself that if I'm staying out, I'm gonna contribute greatly financially to the war effort in Ukraine. And because I'm a PhD in economics and I've been dealing with some really interesting financial schemes in terms of attracting foreign capital and also having a guarantee mechanisms with some non-bank financial mediatories, I thought that that's what I'm gonna do. So it was the starting of my journey, I would say. Like, so it started when I just went to work for some B2B SaaS company as a manager, but it didn't fulfill my vow. Like within the next 8 months, I felt that I'm not contributing enough, and that's when I decided to start Dropla. And it was a moment in Denmark when Danes gave 19 Caesar howitzers to Ukraine. It was January 2023, and if you will remember, they gave 19 Caesar howitzers out of 19. So while everybody else was very hesitant about how to treat this Ukrainian crisis on a high political level, oh, should we help or should we not, how much should we help, and was very hesitant, Danes were immediately on par with Ukrainians, and they gave 19 out of 19. So they had 19, they gave 19. Everybody else was giving 10 out of 100, 100 out of 1,000, literally sitting on piles and piles of munitions and weapons that Ukrainians dearly needed, but they were hesitant politically. But Danes weren't. And the howitzers that they gave wasn't some kind of technology from 40 years ago, not some old equipment that, I'm gonna give you old equipment, Ukraine, and I'm gonna buy a new one for myself. The Caesar howitzers was a newly made 155 millimeter artillery systems made in France. And so Danes gave every single barrel to Ukraine. And for me, it was a moment where I felt, okay, there is some kind of resonance I feel with the people of Denmark, because nobody else did it. And also Denmark is #1 in the world in donations to the Ukrainian war effort per capita. That's everything you need to know, which means that the Danish citizen has given more of his own than any other citizen of any other country in the world. So this is basically statistics that forced me to go and work in Denmark and establish my company here. So this is a small pretext of why I'm here. And as I said, it wasn't Odense that we chose Odense, it was Odense that chose us, but it's another long story, I won't go into it. So I founded a company called Dropla. It's the company's drone platform, and we started with the humanitarian demand, basically, because we had a big problem. Right now we are around 55 people, both in Denmark and in Ukraine. We're nearly 3 years of age. We're not allowed to make that kind of photos anymore in Ukraine, because gathering together in a group more than 15 people in military colors is, let's say, an invitation for a ballistic strike. Yeah, so it's very tough. So this photo was taken 2 years ago, but now we're 55 men. So like right now we have a very diverse portfolio of products, but I will not get into it. We started with the humanitarian demining. This is what's important. The name drone platform, and the idea was that you attach different remote sensing technologies onto a drone, and then you fly not one drone, but 10 drones with different sensors, like RGB, multispectral, thermal, LiDAR, magnetic radiometry, ground penetrating radar. So where you have different layers, because every sensor has its own environmental limitation. So if you stack the layers of different sensors, you increase the fidelity and accuracy of the detection. So that was the initial plan. But the thing is, this is for the humanitarian demining, okay guys? And we've been doing it for a year. So, and we scanned roughly 5,000 hectares of Ukrainian land with this. And we got recognized by the Ukrainian armed forces, like what we do for landmine detection. And one guy from Special Forces approached us, and it was a very blunt and a direct conversation when he said, what you're doing for the humanitarian demining is very cute, but literally stop doing bullshit and help the front line. Because if we will not hold the front line, there will be no land to demine. So please, like, that's very cute, but can you please focus on what's happening on the front line? And this is how we came into the short-range reconnaissance bracket of the equipment. And predominantly we are used right now as a artificial intelligence for front edge of the battle area operations. So there is a term which is called FIBA. Like if you don't know, front edge of the battle area is a NATO classification of the zone right before the trench line. So this is your trench line, this zone is a no man's land, and somewhere there is the adversary. So when you are waging war, 95% of all your operations is done in the FIBA zone. Right now this FIBA zone extends like 35-40 kilometers deep, and because we are now in the first what's called transparent war, which means that you see everything that is your adversary is doing, and your adversary sees everything you are doing in this zone. And because the logistics operation is the blood of the warfare, you need to disrupt your enemy from doing logistics. That's why Russians are disrupting our logistics with, let's say, dropping landmines at night or at day from the drones and trying to disrupt your operations because they see you. And one of the biggest challenges right now is so-called ambush drones. And the ambush drones, who knows what ambush drone is? Not much. Okay.
Sitting
Yes.
and waiting, right?
Yes, one is sitting and waiting. So the ambush drone is just a regular drone, but an optic fiber cable, which means it's not radio controlled, which means it does not emit any radio frequency, which means that you cannot detect it on the CGN systems or spectrum analyzers. So you don't see it coming. It doesn't emit electromagnetic radiation. So they fly in at night into your FIBA zone, and then they sit near the road. And then they wait for you to come. And it is basically a flying landmine. And because they see you coming, like from far away, they can call the guy who placed this drone and say, like, route number 4, ETA 5 minutes, disrupt operation. And 5 minutes down the line, they just raise, and 30 seconds later, they hit you. And there is no way to get away from it, which is why detecting those ambush drones before you actually go into the operation is vital. And this is exactly what our company is doing right now, predominantly in Ukraine. We have just received the NATO stock number for the first artificial intelligence system for detecting ambush drones and different types of threats like landmines. So we're very proud of that. Here you can see an example of how it works. So it basically inferences the video feed from any ISR drone. ISR, it's intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, any recon drone, and it finds the landmines and the ambush drones. Here's the result. Here you can see how it looks like from the drone that flies at 150 meters altitude.
So that view is from 150
Yes,
meters?
yes, yes. This is a very funny story I'd like to share. Here you see just a big lighter, but it's not just a big lighter. This is actually a very important one for our company. We were in trials in the Chernobyl zone where we have some insurgent activities as well, and we're also waging war there. So you know that the front is not just on the active sides, the front is everywhere. And like we have some special forces operations guys that are going in and going out, and we've been testing our blue ice system. And they asked us to check their routes that they're taking daily to the operations and from to find landmines. And we found roughly like 28 landmines on the route, but some lay like 2 meters away from the route, like here and here. But it's landmines, but they don't trigger until you actually step on it, right? So they didn't care about the landmines that we have found, but all they cared is that we have found this lighter, because this lighter belonged to a chief of this reconnaissance unit, and he said that it's a trophy lighter that he lost 2 weeks ago. and that was like a moment where we received this pull for the Ukrainian armed forces and like, to use our systems in the Ukrainian armed forces. So yeah, it's a special one, I would say. So right now we're also developing an unmanned ground vehicles, and this is extremely important concept and admittable force in Ukraine. So here you can see our unmanned ground vehicles. We have a big problem right now in Ukraine because like Russians have an unlimited, I would say, mobilization reserve compared to Ukraine, and we truly have a shortage of men in the trenches, in the trench line, defending our land. So my only, I would say not ambition, but a path to replace a human being for a robotic system. And so that we should do all the operations that we can do with the robotic systems, it should be done by the robotic systems, not by men. So for this year, and the President Zelensky made it clear that it's one of the most important directions of the defense industry to produce as much unmanned ground vehicles as we can. And right now we are going through, the company is going through the Build with Ukraine track, trying to go through. It's a very big political arrangement that the company need to go through, but eventually, who knows about the Build with Ukraine program? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So like the idea is very simple, that the Ukraine holds a unique body of the experience, like how to wage war in the modern conditions. So we have the knowledge and the experience, and our European partners lack the experience and access to the front line and to the information on how to actually wage that kind of war, what type of technology works there and what won't. So, but they do have the resources. So, and Build with Ukraine program is a special program of the for President Zelensky to bring the IP of the technology to the allied nation, create a joint venture, and then that the allied nation would purchase those equipment and send it to Ukraine. And this is my ambition as well here in Denmark. I'm working towards establishing the first sovereign UGV production in Denmark. And the main KPI for me is the amount of money that stays in the kingdom. So like the supply chain all really down the road, we want to have 50% of every krona that is spent buying these machines to stay in the kingdom. So it's a win-win-win situation for everybody. Like the allied nation is incentivizing their own economy, their own industry, and Ukrainians are getting weapons that they need to wage war against the Russian aggression. So this is my predominant mission right now, and the only one. So yeah, this is basically our
Så lige pludselig er der faktisk ikke noget over, ikke? it's different.
Thanks for watching Indiavision. Please subscribe to keep updated on any new videos that we release, and give us a thumbs up with your comments if you've liked this video.